If you're stuck right now, especially if you're a smaller church, in today's episode, we're talking about the number one most misunderstood principle in church growth. And when you understand this and apply it to your church, you have the potential to reach a bunch of new families because you're taking advantage of family dynamics and working with the natural rhythms of the school year. And here to help me, I've got my friend, Chris Abbott. What's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, dog. What's up, man? Excited to be here, bro.
Yeah. So this is a cool topic that we're talking about today. This idea of that there's momentum seasons, that there's ministry seasons. Is kind of that idea and that principle. But we'll dive into all of what that means. But I feel like this is a topic that can really sneak up, and you almost like don't know what's wrong, and you're just like you feel like you're going against the grain in church. You're like, why can I not just get in a rhythm here? And it's almost like an undiagnosed issue or something, it's like once I can kind of, the light bulb goes on. And as we've worked with churches, this is putting words to all of a sudden what a lot of churches are feeling and what we felt in ministry, because we're in ministry as well. So anyway, with that kind of as a set the stage there, we can just dive right into this. But how have you experienced this? What have you seen? How can we help the churches that are tuning in?
Man, so I think probably the most important thing to understand, like right off the bat, right, is what are momentum seasons and ministry seasons, right, and how do they differ? And so the biggest thing, I think everybody already like naturally understands what a momentum season is, even if you've never understood it in these terms, right? Mm-hmm. So your momentum seasons are like the natural momentum points that you have throughout the course of the year, right? And so every church is different, but for the most part, these momentum seasons are about the same for most people, right? It's your back to school, your fall festival, harvest party, whatever you have like kind of October, right? And then Christmas, right? The natural momentum that comes with the new year in January, right? And then Easter and Mother's Day, right? So that's typically about it, right? Like those are kind of the natural momentum points of the year. And so you have a lot of momentum ramping up into those and then coming out of those. In between those momentum seasons are ministry seasons. And this is where a lot of people, I think, kind of misunderstand the opportunity here, right? So for example, a massively missed opportunity as far as the ministry season goes, in my opinion, is the summer. Right. So a lot of times, like we refer to it as like the summer slump, right? And it makes sense. It's like people go away on vacation, right? Pastors take sabbaticals, giving goes down, attendance goes down. So it's easy to just kind of like, I think every church I've ever been a part of, right, like goes on like a spending freeze in the summer, right? Yeah. Like, okay, like, hey, we'll spend money again and we'll reach people like when back to school comes, but there's no money, so spending freeze, whatever, right? And I totally get that. But I think where we really fail to miss this is actually a ministry season where we can do ministry with people. And what I've come to realize both in my church and in some of my friends' churches that I've been able to work with, it's these ministry seasons that are sometimes the most important because, right? Like for example, at least in my church, if we do nothing, tons of people are going to come back like at back to school, like, and our attendance is going to go like this, right? And then whenever we do something, whatever it ends up being, like a trunk or treat or whatever, like in October, a ton of people are going to show up. We don't even have to like run ads for it or anything, right? Same thing like, Christmas, Easter, a bunch of people are going to show up to those, even if we do nothing. But what I've realized is that ministry seasons multiply momentum seasons, right? So what I mean by that is like so my favorite way of taking advantage of and investing into, leaning into a ministry season is with prayer ads, right? So we talk a lot about this with a bunch of our churches, like in the Grow program, is you have these ads that are basically like, hey, how can I pray for you, right? And then people all over your city who want you to pray for them, right? Like come to you and submit a prayer request, and you can pray for them and you can invite them to church. So I've told the story of a million times, but I love it, so I'll tell it again, right? Like one of the fastest growing churches in the 90s used this principle, which is actually where I got this, right? I actually kind of stole this idea from him and then built it into the idea of prayer ads. Basically what he did is when he planted a church like 1992, right? And back then you didn't have all this digital and internet and social media and ways to get the word out. It was a lot harder. So all he did was he would just, walk down the street from his church, and there was like a local gas station there. And he would literally just pump people's gas. Like they would pull in, he would just pump their gas, right? And then while he was pumping their gas, he'd turn to the guy and just say like, "Hey man, how can I pray for you?" Right? It's like, "Oh, well, gas station attendant guy, like want to pray for me?" It's like, I don't know, man. My marriage kind of sucks. It's like, okay, great. Let's pray for your marriage. Right. And he would literally be praying for the guy's marriage. And then in the middle of it, he'd be like, "Man, matter of fact, why don't you pray this with me? Say this with me. Dear God, I give you my life. I give you my life. I make you the Lord of my life." And he'd literally just like lead them to the Lord and lead them in the sinner's prayer. Right. And so now I've had people push back all the time if I tell the story, or if I'm talking to people like a conference or something. They're like, "Dude, but was that a real salvation?" I mean, I don't know, but some of them must have been, right? Like, like some of them kind of like, "Hey, this guy's weird," and they just said it, drove off, and never affected their life. But I guarantee some of those other people are going to be in heaven because that pastor like led them to the Lord at a gas pump, right? Like, and I've actually adapted this tactic in my own life as kind of a side note, and it is shocking how well it works. Right? Like, sure, you can go like the whole Romans road and you can lay out the entire gospel and you can ask people if they want to get saved and explain all that theologically. But what I found is just pray for people. And in the middle of it, you literally just say, "Hey, you know what, bro? Man, matter of fact, why don't you just pray this with me? Say this out loud. Dear God, I've led so many people to the Lord that way." Wow. And I'm telling you, it's crazy is they'll just start crying in the middle of it. And all of a sudden, like the Holy Spirit sweeps in and it's this total God moment. And it's changed people's lives before. So anyway, that idea of I call it the gas station principle, right? That idea of just praying for people and leading with ministry first, right? Kind of change everything, right? So that pastor, because he did that, right, and he's getting all these people saved and praying for them at the gas pump, right? Some of those people would be like, "Bro, like, why are you doing this? Do you work for the gas station?" He's like, "Oh no, I'm pastor of the church right down the street," right? And then the natural question next is, "Well, what time's church on Sunday?" Right? Like,
yeah.
So because he did that, he had dozens and dozens of new people flooding his church plant, right? Every single Sunday. And they became one of the fastest growing churches in America. So much so that they actually got featured in National Geographic, of all things. I have no idea why, right? But and they got featured on MTV and in Rolling Stone magazine, right?
Oh my goodness.
Back in the 90s when those things were still cool, right? So that was a huge deal. And again, all of it was just because while everybody else was out there, I don't know how people promoted their church plant like in the 90s, maybe billboards or newspaper or something like that. I have no idea, right? But instead of like going all in on marketing, he went all in on ministry. Right. So and here's kind of what most people, myself included, usually do until I learned this principle, right? I did the same thing. I think we all did. Right. We invite people to church so that we can do ministry. Again, it makes sense. It's like, hey, if we can get them in the front doors, right, then we can get them saved. We can get them baptized, plugged into a small group or a volunteer system. We invite people to church so we can do ministry. What he did is he actually flipped that. And he did ministry first and then invited people to church, right? And if you look at the gospel, like this is what Jesus did, right? Like one of my favorite examples is Luke 5, the calling of Peter, right? Like he didn't just go up and just say, "Hey, Peter, follow me," right? Like he came to Peter, came to Peter at Peter's job and used his business, right, his boat, to be able to preach to people. And then afterwards, "Hey, Peter, go out to go out to where it's deep and let down your nets for a catch," right? We all know the story. The nets start breaking, the boat starts sinking. His business partners come out. Then their boat starts sinking. And it's just boom, massive harvest. And Peter goes back to the beach, falls on his knees, and says, "Lord, I'm not worthy." Right? And Jesus said, "Hey, come follow me." Right? He did ministry first before he invited him into anything else. And I think if the church, I think if we can understand this principle and we can get back to this principle, then I think we'll see new families flooding our churches. And I say that because I've seen it at my church, and then I've seen it in churches that I've been able to work with on this idea, especially with prayer ads themselves. It doesn't have to be prayer ads, right? It can be any type of ministry, but it has to be outside the four walls of the church, right? We have to be helping people with something, and then there has to be an invite to church. And I think some churches will miss this, in my opinion, based on conversations I've had. Where I've had pastors come to me and say, "Yes, we want to do this, but we don't want any type of ulterior motive, so we're not going to invite them to church. We're just going to serve them," right? To which I say, man, that's such an injustice, right? That's so selfish. I know that seems like it's humility or something, but it's a false humility. It's actually being completely selfish, because if you truly have the words of eternal life and you believe in what you're doing, and you have the answer to everything that they're going through, and you don't tell them about, like, you don't invite them into a relationship and to come to church where they can learn more about it, that is so selfish. You change their lives, right? So anyway, I could talk about this for hours, Nathan. I don't want to, I'll get off my stump a little bit, but the idea of a ministry season is basically going all in on ministry, right? And like I said, we're doing ministry first, and then we're inviting people to church. You have to do step 1 and step 2. If you don't invite them to church, you're missing the point. Right? We have to do ministry, and then we have to invite them to church, because that's where, right? Like even if you do incredible ministry and even if you lead them to the Lord, but then you just leave them there, right? What's going to happen? They have to get plugged into the body. And so that's why I think it's really, really important to invite them out to church. And when you do this, right, especially with something like prayer ads, now you're reaching people outside your church, right? You're reaching people that want ministry, and then you're inviting them into a relationship with Jesus and into a relationship with the church where they get plugged in with other Christians, and be developed in their faith, right, and grow spiritually. And so that's why this is so important. But what's interesting about this in the conversation of momentum seasons and ministry seasons is when you do this, right? So let's say you decide to go all in over the summer, right? And so June, July, August, you're doing prayer ads, and let's say you pray for 1,000 people throughout 3 months, right? So like 333 people about every single month, and then you invite them to church. Typically, what we see, if you do this right, typically about 10% of the people who you pray for will actually come visit your church, right? They'll schedule a planner visit and come check out your church. So not only would that's probably going to be about 30 people a month who say, yes, I'd like to come to your to church, right? And let's say only half of them show up, right? Let's say 30 people say, yes, I'd love to come to church, pastor. And mainly only half of them sleep in and forget about it, but half of them still show up. That's still 15 new people per month checking out your church. But what we've seen is, you pray for 1,000 people over the summer, you planted that seed with them, right? But now during a natural momentum point in a momentum season of back to school, if you invite them out to something like a bridge event, right, now those people you've already done ministry with and you planted the seed, and now you can harvest on all of that ministry in a momentum season, right? So those ministry seasons feed momentum seasons, right? And a ministry season multiplies. So your momentum seasons are much bigger, and you have way more harvest. Right? When that's coming. So does that kind of make sense? I know I just talked.
No, that's really good. I mean, I'm always thinking of illustrations as you're talking, and certainly had the one about you're planting a seed, you're reaping the harvest. You got to plant the seed or else you can't reap the harvest. So certainly that one, but just on a practical thing that I experienced with my oil changes at the dealership that I bought my car from, it was like $300 or something to get oil changes, and they for 3 years. And I was like, dude, that's a great deal. So they, I go there to get my oil changed because it's unlimited oil changes, and we drive a lot of miles on our car. So like we're getting our oil changed like every month or every month and a half. So way more than the 3 months, or whatever. And, but it's a great deal. But what's interesting is as I've developed relationship with them, I'm like, dude, I'm going to go there if I ever need another car or if I need something fixed on my car. In fact, we had something happen on our car where it was it was making this noise when we drive fast, and it was just like got really, really loud. Well, it was the ball bearings, and he somehow was able to get it under warranty that I didn't even know I had on the car that just came complimentary with it. And it was like a bunch of money. They replaced it for completely free. Bro. And I'm just like, wow. I mean, it was all of the just planting those seeds of just like, hey, and honestly, it's not like the nicest dealership in the world. Like in terms of, their waiting room kind of smells bad, but I'm like, I don't really care because, man, they have done right by me. They have taken care of me. And that is going, and the end of the day, we'll reap money for them, because they're a business. And, I want to buy my next car from them because of that. So anyway, I just think really similar, in terms of we're doing ministry with people, planting those seeds with people. Then when there comes a moment, I need a car or an event, it's like, oh, well, yeah, I'm obviously going to go there. And maybe that's the next step that they need to get them through the doors. Like, it's not even a question in their mind. They're not even getting on, try and search. They're just like, oh, I know where I'm going to go, because you've already planted those seeds with them. So anyway, just that was popping into my head. Like, I'm actually experiencing that just in a different realm, with the car world. But that's I think what you're talking about here.
That's no, you nailed it. There's an important principle at work with that you just shared, that maybe not everybody picked up on, and that is it's about relationship, right? And relationship is superseding all the other stuff, right? So I've been a part of church plants before in different churches where it's like, I know we didn't have the best building or the most comfortable seats, or it was hot in the summer because the air conditioning couldn't keep up, or whatever, right? From a consumer standpoint, we didn't have the best product, if you want to call it that, or experience. But relationship supersedes all of that. So typically, if you went to a place and it wasn't the nicest place and the waiting room smelled, right? Like, you go back, right? And Beck would be like, hey, how was it? And you're like, man, the waiting room stunk. Like, it wasn't very nice. Like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I want to go back, right? But the relationship that they have built with you, because of everything they've done to help you out, and all the kind of stuff, they saved you all this money and helped you with the warranty. Now it built that relationship, and it built trust, which supersedes a smelly waiting room and some of the other things, right? So not only do you not care about that stuff, you're like, I can't wait to spend more money with them. And the next time that I need a car, I'm going through them because of the relationship they built with me. Right. And so I think that's where that's why the ministry seasons are so important, right? Is then when it comes time to, for a momentum point, right? Like a back to school or a fall festival or Christmas or Easter or whatever. That's why you'll be able to harvest on that, because you built that relationship with them. Right. And so, excuse me, even if you're like, man, our church isn't exactly where I want it to be right now, it doesn't matter, because it's about relationship. Right. So I love that you share that, because it's a perfect analogy, bro. Perfect story.
Yeah.
That's exactly what's taking place.
Yeah. It just, as you talk, that's what pops in my head. Now, I also just wonder, because we're both in ministry as well. We help out our churches that we're a part of. And just now putting, so to speak, that hat on for me, like, what if we started, just to give kind of a flyover? Okay. I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. I didn't necessarily walk through this at the beginning before our conversation, but what if we started, okay, we sat down, it's January, or let's say it's December, and we're going to think through January, and it's the new year. So that would be a momentum season. What are some of the things that we should keep our eye on? And then as we progress, like, how does that different now? How do we shift now to a ministry season? Now, I know you just went through prayer ads, but now just diving into another area of just everyday ministry life in the church, calendar, maybe, is like, what things should we focus on? Like, give people kind of an idea of what that looks like.
Yeah. So I'm super excited. I'll say this: if you're watching the show, you're liking this, and this is helpful to you, depending on when you're watching this video, we actually have a Grow Your Church workshop coming up, specifically focusing on back to school. And so if this is interesting to you, and if you'd like to learn a little bit more about this and how to do this at your church, you can go to churchmarketinguniversity.com/workshop, churchmarketing.com/workshop, churchmarketinguniversity.com/workshop.
We'll have the link below.
Yeah, thanks. I was like, wait, did I just say that right? Okay. Look at the link below. But you can register for that workshop. It's free. But we're going to be talking about this idea of momentum and ministry seasons. We're going to talk about kind of a framework for exactly what you need to do, and how you can, specifically use this framework to add 10 to 15 new families to your church this fall. Right. So, and we're going to kind of just walk you through the plan that Ryan and I built for our churches and kind of roll that out. So if that's helpful for you, you can jump into that. I'll say the last Grow Your Church workshop that we did back in January had over 6,000 pastors that registered for it, and our software doesn't hold that many people. So if that sounds at all interesting to you, jump in there. Just show up a little bit early to make sure you don't get locked out. And maybe we need to find some new software. But anyway, so the kind of what this looks like every day, like real life, like you're talking about, Nathan, is I think you want to take advantage of. There's basically kind of three types of invites, right? So again, there's talking about all this at the workshop, but 3 types of event, right? The first is an everyday invite, right? So you need to have something that's inviting people to church every single day, right? Especially if you can't do it every day and your people aren't inviting, then excuse me, you have to have some type of system that invites people to church every single day, right? Everyday invites. Second type of invites are momentum invites, and then the third type are ministry invites, right? And so this is kind of what that looks like every day, right? You need to have something. What we've built is something we call the automatic invite system, right? So easiest way to do this, in my opinion, is to use Google. This is what I did at my church. This is what we do, helping some other churches, some of my friends' churches, is we use Google because Google has a program that'll give you $10,000 a month in free Google AdWords, right? So it's literally $120,000 a year. It's just a marketing budget that you can get for free. I think Google does this because it's a tax write-off for them. They can say, hey, we gave First Baptist Church, $120,000 in free advertising this year, and then they can write that off, right? So win for them, win for us as the church. And so this is really, really helpful. And then you can use that and you can just set up simple Google ads that are just inviting people to church when they're searching for stuff, right? Whether it's like things to do or something in the community, or they're searching for a church, you can show up there and invite them to church, and it can be automatic and it runs in the background 24 hours a day, even while you're sleeping, eating, hanging with your family, working on your sermon, leading volunteers, whatever it is. Those are everyday invites. The second one is momentum invites. And I think one of the easiest ways to do this, like inside of the Grow program, and you already know this, Nathan, obviously, like we have playbooks, right? That on different momentum pieces, right? So at Easter, every single year, we go in and we help churches. We just basically execute the Easter playbook. And what we do is we help them build something I call an event stack. Right? It's just a stack of different things you're going to be doing at your Easter event, and then inviting people to church and how to use Facebook and Instagram ads in order to promote that. Right? There's some other things like print materials and invite cards, kind of all that stuff. Right? But you're just tying all that around, and you're promoting and inviting people to a natural momentum point like Easter, Christmas, back to school, fall festival, Mother's Day, right? First of the year, that kind of stuff. So that's the second type, right? First time, everyday ads, everyday invites. Which is usually Google ads in my the way I do it. Then momentum invites, right, which is going to be momentum points, whatever, then promoting those, usually the Facebook and Instagram ads. And then finally, the number 3 is with ministry, like a ministry season and ministry invites. And my favorite way to do that is with prayer ads, like we talked about here a few minutes ago. So I love doing that. I'm obviously I'm a big fan of digital, just because I think you can reach people that you would never normally be able to reach, right? Like you and I could go out there and could go knock on doors. I don't know how effective that is, right? Like prayer ads specifically, what I love about it is like, it's kind of like, driving into a neighborhood, right? So you could go to a neighborhood and you can knock on every single door and you could ask if you can pray for people and what they need and tell them about Jesus and invite them to church. But for most people, you're going to be interrupting their day and you're going to be annoying, right? Like even if they appreciate the message that you have, right? Like I can't say, I work from home. Can't say how many times people might, like my front door is like 6 feet that way, right? So like I can't say how many times I'm like in a meeting or doing something like this, and like somebody comes and knocks on the door, then I go out there and it's a roofing guy who's like, hey, I'm in the just in the neighborhood and I'm doing the Smith's house down the street and thought I could jump up on your roof and give you a free quote, right? Or a landscaping guy, or cable guy, whatever it is. They're trying to sell me something. And some of them I'm actually interested in, right? Like we've had a lot of storms lately. I'm like, I actually would love to get a quote on the roof and have somebody get up there. But I'm usually in the middle of something. So it's really annoying. It's an interruption, right? You and I could go do that. We could knock on people's door, ask them to pray for them, but they're probably in the middle of something. We're interrupting. And it's annoying. But you and I could drive into that same neighborhood, drive to the middle of it and hold up a giant sign that says, how can we pray for you? And what happens is all the people who want prayer will come out of their houses and they'll come to us, and then we can pray for them, invite them to church. Right. And that's the difference, right? Is like, man, we can go out there and try to interrupt people and annoy them, or we can just say, how can I pray for you? And all the people who actually want prayer will come out of their houses and come to us. We can do ministry and then invite them out to church. And so I think that's one of the reasons like this principle works so well, but it's understanding that you have to go hard in the paint during the ministry seasons as well. Right. Like, but the tactics are different. Right. So I'm going to be, I might be running some Facebook ads or Instagram ads or something like that, promoting my back to school bash if I'm having one or something like that. Right. But you're only going to be doing that right at back to school, where and the success of that, right? You're naturally going to have people that are going to come to that anyway, but you can have it way bigger if you've gone all in on the ministry season of ministering to people
Mm-hmm.
summer, right? Ministry season multiplies momentum seasons.
Yeah, that's really good. Now, I wanted to add in. So my church does the Google grant, and it's been phenomenal, huge. I've got a buddy out in California. He's in San Jose. Became a lead pastor there about 5 years ago. Church of about 300. Was getting it up around 400. Then COVID hit, got down to pretty low. It was pretty rough for a while. Now he's building back, just went back to 2 services.
Okay.
And what's cool is I've been able to, tell him about the grow program and all that, the Google grant. And dude, it's just been phenomenal. In fact, the last 30 days, I looked at his stats. In fact, I can't help but, because I'm really excited about it. It's different when it's personal. You got a buddy that you went to Bible school with. I did master's commission with him, in case anybody knows what that is, way back in the day. So anyway, it was, he's a great guy, and I've just watched how God's worked in his family and his life. And then just to see, the difference that this can make. So, let me see if I can't, do this and share my screen with you. So right here, he's in San Jose, Central Christian Church. So in the last 30 days, he's had 1,271 people go to his website.
Bro.
We've spent for him, because we run the ads for him, $8,376 of Google's money. Not his money, not our money, Google's money. I mean, that's huge. 1,271 people just going to your website. I mean, like, that is massive. And so anyway, I just recently, I shared that with him, and, it was just awesome. So he was, I'm so excited about, literally over 1,000 people going to his website, and his church is, like I said, it's getting back to where it was. And this is helping him do that. So, this is why we're excited about it. This is why,
100%, man.
Chris is saying, like, and here's the thing about always. Do you say always inviting, or every day?
Yeah, always be inviting. Yeah, every day.
So and it's because it happens 24/7. Like, while Tim is chilling with his family, that he's the lead pastor. My buddy, while he's chilling with his family in the evening, his system's working for him. Like. And what's so beautiful is it's spending Google's money. Like, it's just crazy. Anyway,
that's my favorite part, right?
Yeah, exactly.
If I can spend my money or if I can spend Google's money, I'm going to go Google every time, right? Like,
yeah, and that's what makes this. An $8,300 some dollars a month. That is a mega church's budget for marketing. Just that. Very, very few churches in the world today could actually afford something like that on a monthly basis. But yet this makes it obtainable for any church. It's just unbelievable. It's really, really amazing. So anyway, just thought I'd mention those stats. Our church does it, and it's going awesome. Got my church on it about 6 months ago, or maybe a little bit longer than that, but got them on last year, and finally convinced them, because I'm the teaching pastor there. And so I kind of have a part-time role, but I was talking to him, I was like, oh, we got to do this, guys. And so I helped set it up and get it. But now, CMU's running all the ads and stuff, and it's going great. And then my buddy out in California. And so I'm like a personal evangelist for this kind of thing, because I just think, man, every single church ought to be taking advantage of this, because it just works all the time, using somebody else's money. There's too many variables that are too good to pass up on it. So anyway, that's what, just for those listening, why we're excited about it. And why we love helping churches, understand that this is available and how the difference that it can make, because it's huge. So I know I'm kind of going off script here, but it's huge. So anyway, back to our topic.
Well, I'll say this to your point, man. Like, so, like when I first heard about it, I thought, I didn't believe it, right? Because I was just like, yeah, right.
I know.
There's no way Google would.
There's no way.
$1,000 a month. It's not like it's $100 a month or $500 a month. It's $10,000 a month, and it just resets every month. I was like, that's crazy, right? But so I went through the and I heard about it on a podcast, right? And then so I dove in. I went through the process, whatever. I secured the grant, and then I like started running ads in my church. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is literally $10,000 a month in free Google ads, right? That's not a briefcase full of cash that you can use to like help make payroll and stuff, right? But it's literally just they give you an account, and you like literally have it's like a gift card, right? It's like $10,000 credit in there that you can use for Google ads. It's crazy, and you get it every single month. So, but here's one of the things I will say that, right? Like if somebody's out there and they're hearing about this for the first time, or if maybe they've heard about it before and they thought, man, we should look into that and we should do it, but you haven't gotten around to it yet. I will say this: Google used to have another program that was actually $40,000 a month, and they sunsetted that program. Right. So it's no longer available. You can't apply for it. And now what they did, at least like the last time I looked into it, is all the churches that had that, or nonprofits that had that, they got to keep it and they still had it, but then they just stopped. They sunsetted the program, so they didn't let anyone else sign up for it. I personally, it's just me personally, I personally think that's coming soon at Google, right? Where I think what they're going to do is at some point they're not going to continue to take applications for it, and they're not going to let people, they're not going to give out any more grants, but all the people who are already in the program, they're just going to let them run with that forever. Right. Because it's a lifetime grant, meaning once you have it for like the lifetime of the program. But if you lose it, you can never apply for it again. Right. So it's important to secure it and then actually do it right. So, So anyway, so it's important to take a look into that. If you want to know a little bit more about it, come to the Grow Your Church workshop on August 10th. And you can check that out. And we're going to be talking more about that and kind of how you can get that and everything. But I think that's it, especially since I've been thinking a lot about the parable of the talents, right? Like, and just like, man, like and the Bible talks about he gave each of them according to their ability, right? And then what they did, right? And it wasn't like the one who took like his talents to the marketplace, which is risky, right? When you take your talents to the marketplace and invest them, you could lose them. Right. And so that's I think that's the hard part, right? Like you're taking in there, like you're taking a risk. But those are the people who's like, well done, good and faithful servant, right? The two servants that took their talents to the marketplace, invested them and turned them into more talents. Right. The wicked and lazy servant was the one who buried his talent in the sand. Now we all know that story. We've all probably preached sermons on that story. I know I've preached it more times than I can count. But what happens is, we tend to think, man, I've got to be a good steward with the resources that God has given me. And so I'm just going to hold on to it and not spend money on anything that could be risky, right? Except that's the opposite of what that parable means, right? That's the definition of somebody who buries their talent in the sand. But it's actually the people that take their money and risk it and invest it in the marketplace and get a bigger return, right? So I bring that up in this case because what I realized, like for me and for my church, was, man, we've got to take some risks and we've got to try some things that have the possibility of failing, right? And some of them probably will, but we're gonna hit on things that could multiply our ministry. And so that's a lot of the things and programs that we've tried and that kind of stuff is a huge deal. And similarly, like in Google Ads, well, it doesn't cost anything to actually like apply for it. Right. That to me is like one of those like stewardship things, right? Where it's like, okay, I can go out there like, now it might not be money that you have to invest into the Google grant, but it might be time, right? It might be like, okay, I'm actually going to carve out a couple hours to go learn more about the Google grant, how this program works, so that I can, that's going to be multiplied back to me and we can reach more people. Right. Because I guarantee if you spend $10,000 of Google's money every single month inviting people to church, some of them are going to show up. Right. I mean, that's a lot of invites, a lot of people that you're going to reach. And so whether that's time that you spend on your own or whether you come out to the workshop in August and, or whether you learn how to do it yourself or whether you just hire somebody to do it. Like that's what I did at my church. I got into it. I did it for a while and I realized, man, this is taking up way too much time, but it's way too good for me to just give up on. Right. And I didn't want to like actually violate some Google policies and then get it taken away and we could never apply for it again. So I actually like found a guy and paid him $500 a month to just run my Google ads for me. Right. And I just told the church, I was like, hey, like, we're going to pay this guy $500 a month because we're going to pay him 500 and we're going to get 10,000. right? So that's like, that was the best deal I could find out there, right? 500 bucks a month, we get 10,000. Let's just do that, and let's just pay him forever. Don't ever stop paying him. Whatever happens, make sure to cut the check for 500 bucks every month. Otherwise, that $10,000 is going to go away. Which, as a small side note, this was years ago. At one point, they did stop paying him because I wasn't on staff anymore, and I don't know if people forgot about it or what. They stopped paying him, and then we lost the Google grant. And then my pastor called me at one point, was like, "Hey, we lost that $10,000 a month from Google stuff." And I was just like, it's like one of those things like, I told you to never stop paying.
Yeah, I told you.
Anyway, now luckily we were able to, I had a friend who had some connections at Google, and they were actually able to go get that back for us, which was super lucky. And then we could start running it again. It's like, hey guys, let's never stop paying that guy, right? So anyway, I think it's worth taking a look at, right? I know it was for me. I had to dive in. I spent a couple of weeks learning about it. I spent a lot of hours trying to learn it, and then eventually, after 6 months of trying to run it myself, I eventually just paid somebody a small amount to get a much bigger return. And so anyway, I want to encourage anyone out there who's like, man, I'm not very techy, I don't really understand this stuff. Just dive in and figure it out, because there's people on the other side of your faithfulness. You can reach a lot more people, even if it's uncomfortable learning it. It was uncomfortable for me, right? Like, plus I realized I love running Facebook ads. I hate running Google ads, right? It's two different.
They're two different. Same. Like I know enough to run a Facebook ad, and they make it fairly intuitive, but not a Google ad. In fact, Chris, it was years ago when I started working with you, when I first met you, it was around that time. I didn't know about the Google grant, and the church I was working with at the time, I was the associate pastor there. We were paying Google for ads. I didn't know about the Google grant.
Wow,
We were paying. So here I am. I feel bad now. I was wasting their money. But we were trying to. And dude, I had just the worst time trying to figure out I never did. They used to call it Google AdWords, and now it's just Google Ads is the platform behind the scenes that you use but at the time it was Google AdWords, and I didn't understand it, the keywords and all that stuff. Facebook ads are easier, they're still somewhat complicated and you got to know what you're doing. But yeah, Google ads are definitely more difficult. So just ask some people. Don't just take our word for it, but you can ask some people. Like they're definitely two different beasts. And it's an investment, right? So when you have someone do that for you, especially when, Facebook doesn't have a grant, so you're going to have to pay for the ads too. So if you pay someone, I think that's worth it as well. You could pay someone to do your Facebook ads, and you're going to have to pay for the ads as well. You're going to have to pay Facebook. But with this, it's like you don't pay Google. Google takes care of it for you. Because even trying to spend $10,000 a month, you can do it. And if you get the right team that knows how to do it, they can end up getting that, like I said, is a good chunk of that 10,000. So that, we feel really good about that, but we can get churches up that high, but just making sure you have somebody that can actually spend it. Because that's another problem you can run into. Just kind of as a side note, we had a organization run the grant for the church I'm at. So got the grant, had an organization run it. And I was like, man, he was struggling running it. And so I was like, just let us run it. And so then we were able to get back on track. So anyway, all that to say, it is somewhat complicated, but just to see it as an investment, because you're going to get more than enough back, because Google will pay for the ads for you. So that small investment to have somebody run it right, so they can actually spend that money, you will get that, if just looking at it from a dollars and cents standpoint, you're going to get that back in the new people that are coming to your church. So, and then it really comes down to a stewardship thing. So like Chris said, whatever you decide to do, just make sure you're weighing all this out, put it before the Lord, but we really encourage you to do your part and do everything you can to reach people and make heaven more crowded, as we say. So, Chris, let me, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, no, I was going to tell you, I think you're absolutely right, man. Like, I think it's a huge opportunity to reach more people. So it's worth looking into. Yeah.
So not sorry that we just took about a 20-minute aside with that, but we're really passionate about it. So we're going to get back on script now. But okay, so those are everyday invites. So let's say, Chris, we're starting in January. I know you kind of talked through some of it, but like, it's the new year, and that's kind of a momentum spot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to kind of throw out some things here. So maybe like a sermon series could help with that, or maybe or how does that fit in it, or how does like something you do in the kids area, or is there an event or focus on groups and all of those things? That's a momentum. So then moving from that, then you shift to ministry. Is it like, hey, now let's look at our systems and, follow up, or kind of like help me to understand like how I make that transition if I'm in charge of, let's say I'm a lead pastor somewhere and I'm leading my team and saying, okay, this is momentum season, everybody. So we're going to focus on this. Again, prayer ads, you laid that out, perfectly. And obviously, Easter is the thing, and then Mother's Day, but like maybe just get a little more granular. I know we're going to walk through for the fall, at the workshop and stuff, give everybody what they need for that. So again, make sure you click the link below. You're going to get all the great stuff. We're going to put all the cookies on the bottom shelf, as my friend Chris Abbott always says.
Yeah, bro.
So we're going to have a fun time there, but maybe just give people like, if we start in January, kind of an idea there.
So if you're doing it in January, one of the things that's really helpful, I think, is you've got the natural momentum of the school year, right? I think every church out there, right, is probably like, yeah, we see a bunch of new people in January, right? It's like, and it's the same reason that you see them at back to school, is because like, stuff happens, right? The holidays, all that kind of stuff, people get busy. And then one of the things that just happens when people get busy is sometimes they just get out of the rhythm or out of the habit of going to church. But then at back to school, or excuse me, at the beginning of the school year, right? It's like, okay, man, new school year, January 1st, people are writing goals and New Year's resolutions and all that kind of stuff. And then they start getting back into the rhythm after the holidays are over. And, and for a lot of people, it's like, okay, like, hey, we're like, man, we're making goals. We're focusing. What do we want our family to look like? What do we want our lives to look like? And so for a lot of people, that includes church. It's like, hey, we've got to get consistent at church again. So everybody goes back to church, right? There's just that natural momentum point of the beginning of the year. And so a great way to capitalize on that is with a sticky sermon series. And so whether you preach topically or exegetically, or, like however you're doing it, if you have some type of sticky sermon series that's going to describe what you are, what you're preaching on, even if you're preaching verse by verse, right? But just having some type of sticky series name that's going to bring people in, and so that can be really, really helpful. So for example, one of the things, and I use this right as my series at back to school, is one of the things I would do when I was in youth ministry, I was youth pastor, is I would have a giant back to school bash, which we'd promote for like 4 weeks. Right. And so I usually do it like right at like towards the end of September, because I know kids start getting back into the rhythm, right? And like at least here in Oklahoma, it's like middle of August, they kind of start going back to school and that kind of stuff, right? And so, we'd spend, the first, 4 or 5 weeks promoting. I go out to school lunches and all that kind of stuff and promoting the back to school bash, create a bunch of flyers, kids would invite their friends. And the cool thing is, if you have a good enough event, right, like then kids will tell their friends, right? So we actually had a gym. So I found this company. It was actually just one dude, but like he would come out and he would literally like put up this netting, this like floor to ceiling like netting in the gym. And they'd set up these big, huge like obstacles all over. And he would bring in, it was an indoor paintball course, right? And so you could like turn the gym into an indoor paintball course, which is freaking awesome, right? It's like these foam paintballs. They hurt like heck, but they actually weren't as bad as a regular paintball, and you didn't have paint all over your clothes. But kids loved it, right? So it's like, hey, man, we're gonna have an indoor paintball course. We're gonna have a giant bonfire. We're gonna have free taco bueno and free burritos and right, and and a dodgeball tournament, whatever. We just have a fun event. And kids would tell their friends, like, dude, indoor paintball, like, man, bonfire, right? And then our bonfire started to get a little bit somewhat locally famous, right? At least among kids, they knew like how cool our bonfires were, because I'd not only have a bonfire, and this church was actually out in the country, so I needed a bonfire pit. So we just went like probably 100 yards away from the church, and I had somebody with like a backhoe just like dig this gigantic fire pit. And we like had a bunch of youth kids come up. We like ringed the whole thing with like rocks and that kind of stuff, whatever. And then we'd have these giant bonfires, and then we just for fun we would like it's like we had like an old youth couch one time that had broken, so we we burned a couch, right? And that's actually a fun thing to do, right? It turns out kids like burning things, and we throw a couch on the bonfire. It's burns, like, oh, that's crazy, right? And we'd, and anyway, we had a really, really fun event. Getting back to it, so we'd have a really, really fun event. Well, a lot of kids would come out to that and then love it. And then what I would do is I would invite them back, right? And the next week, I say, hey, we're actually launching a brand new series starting next week called Brainwashed, right? Does God really exist, or are we all just brainwashed, right? And so for like high school and middle school kids, they were pumped, right? Because a lot of kids actually wonder this, but never have like the guts to ask anyone. They definitely would never feel comfortable asking a pastor. So the fact that we had this like sticky sermon series and we were going to be addressing, does God really exist? And it's like, hey, let's look at some of the evidence, right? And so and most Christians don't even realize there's actual evidence for the existence of God, right? It's not just faith. You don't just like believe in nothing. There's actually evidence, right? So anyway, so we put together this really fun series, and we always had a ton of kids would show up. Right? Like, hey, we're going to be talking about why bad things happen to good people, and how can a loving God send people to hell, and has science disproving Christianity, and kids were like, oh, and they loved coming out, right? So if you find some type of naturally sticky sermon series that you can do in January, then people are going to come out that. And a lot of times, if you promise to answer or address questions that people are actually asking, as much as I love Luke 5 and the calling of Peter, like we talked about it before, right? Nobody is going, why did Peter, nobody woke up in the middle of the night saying, why did Peter leave his nets on the beach and follow Jesus? I don't understand it. Like, he had a business in boats, but he left them and he went with the Lord. Nobody ever asked that, right? Like you and I might, right? Like, because we like studying that stuff, and that's fun, but nobody woke up in a cold sweat wondering that, right? They're wondering about, is their marriage fall apart, right? Is their husband cheating on them? Are their kids going to get arrested? Are they going the wrong way? Are they doing a bad job parenting? How are they going to make their bills this month? They have real life problems. And
right.
If you answer those types of problems, right, in a sticky sermon series, people are going to show up. So that's one of my favorite ways to take advantage of a natural momentum point or momentum season is with a sticky sermon series. And a great way to do that is to pair that with a bridge event, right? Like a bonfire or a back to school bash, or something like that. And then invite people out to the event and then hand out flyers for the sticky sermon series that starts the next week. And that's a great way to get people back in the door, right? So you get a bunch of people to an event, then you invite them back for a sticky sermon series. And if it truly is sticky, they'll show up, and then you can just kind of ride that momentum all the way through that momentum season. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I really like what you said about making sure that you, as you're planning that sticky sermon series for the beginning of the year, you're running it through the filter of what are people thinking right now, or what will they be thinking at that point, and how can we take the Word of God that is truth, that's powerful, that's anointed, that God, the Holy Spirit uses and applies in people's lives. How can we now address those? Because it does address those issues. It does, address those things. And so, as people are thinking about goals and saying, okay, this year's going to be different, maybe that's I don't know if that's a good name or not, like this year's different, or something is the name of your series. And you say each one of the weeks tackles, well, how is it fundamentally going to be different? We're going to talk about, relationships, we're going to talk about your, your daily habits. We're going to talk about like the real nitty gritty stuff that people would be like, I need to work on that. And you can frame it in such a way when you talk about it, like how it's going to add value to them. Not, something that maybe you enjoy preaching. Although I can fall into that trap, like, oh, this is really interesting to me. And God could be putting that on your heart to maybe communicate in a season. But I think starting at that place in concert with the Lord and just saying, what do we need to communicate? Man, you're running it through that filter. And then I was just going to add to this, Chris, and you tell me what you think. I know we didn't talk about this beforehand, but I'm just throwing this out there, so feel free to shoot it down. But just having been kind of a connections guy, like to capitalize off the momentum of a sticky sermon series, new people coming out, you've got everyday invites happening behind the scenes, so you got some of those things in place. Just to have something like a welcome party in place to capture those people, a way to connect them into the life of the church. And so if that happens like the end of January, now you're working into the ministry season. Now you're ministering to those people and really trying to help them, connect more, and they're loving the church, and then now they, can help invite more people before the next season, and you put tools in their hands to be able to do that. So is it things like that also could be, you could use this whole paradigm idea of ministry, momentum seasons, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely right. I think you're definitely onto something. I think that can be huge, bro.
Yeah. So as far as like now moving further into the year, so let's say you're getting to obviously Easter, which is another momentum season. I know we work with a lot of churches that we help them with our Ultimate Easter Kit, which is always great. A lot of value there. Just encourage everybody to get that, because that's going to help you know what to do to maximize that momentum. Just as we're
to everybody every year.
Yeah, exactly. And we want to help churches, and that's one of the ways that we do that. It's a huge investment on our part, but it also adds a ton of value to the kingdom of God. And so encourage you to check that out. You can use the links below to get more information about that. But what would you say, like, again, I'm kind of putting you on the spot. If you're a lead pastor, Chris, and you're in the ministry season right now, but then you're about ready to jump into the momentum season into Easter, like, what are you thinking? Like, help us. I keep pushing on this because I want to understand how you think, because I think that gets to the root of like helping us understand what to do. So like, your lead pastor, we're going into the momentum season of Easter. And again, I know we've mentioned some of these things in this talk earlier, but maybe somebody's just now tuning in, or maybe they just got back to their desk, and in the last 10 minutes here or so, we'll be at 60 minutes. So I just want to hear from you. What would you do knowing that you're going into a momentum season, and specifically Easter?
Okay. So great question. If it was me, right? Like you kind of, you have the momentum season of January, right? And then typically February, March-ish, it's a little bit different for every church, whatever, but for the most part, that kind of February, March is a ministry season, right? And so what I would do is I would actually just, if it were me, I'd go all in on prayer ads during that season, right? And so my goal would be, let's pray for as many people as humanly possible in February and March, so that we can invite them to Easter, right? Because every single person that you pray for, and just so we're clear too, like, so when I say, like, when I run prayer ads at my church, or help some of my friends, or some of the churches in the Grow program, right, when we're coaching them through running prayer ads, part of the system, right, is like, okay, like, so all of a sudden, like in Facebook Messenger, they're sending you all their prayer requests, right? What you do is you send an audio prayer back to every single person that you pray for. So if you pray for 10 people in a day, right, if you have 10 prayer requests to come in, you send an audio prayer, right? Just a 60-second audio prayer to every single person. So if you have 10 prayer requests come in, and you send 10 60-second audio prayers, it's only 10 minutes of your time, right? It's not going to take a long time. But imagine the impact if you prayed for 10 people a day and sent them every single one of them got a personalized audio prayer from you. Right now, that's 10 people a day. That's 300 people a month, right? So minimum, you're looking at like 600 or 700 people that you're praying for in February and March leading up to Easter. And then when you turn around and invite them to Easter, now you've built that relationship with them, right? So for example, with that audio prayer, I call it like the 3-part conversation elevation framework, right? It's 3 parts. All you need to do is introduce yourself, pray for them, end it with a question. Right. So intro, prayer, question. So it'd be something like this. Let's say a guy reaches out, husband says, "Hey, what's up, pastor? My name's John. Man, if you could pray for my wife, Susie, she's having surgery next week. We're just a little bit nervous about it. So if you could pray for her, man, that'd be awesome." All right. So I'm going to look at that and say, okay, great. I'm going to pray for John and for Susie's upcoming surgery. So what I would do is I would then send an audio prayer back, which you can do in Facebook Messenger. They have like built-in, literally just put the little microphone icon and start recording an audio message. Right. So I might say something like, "Hey, John, what's going on? This is Pastor Chris. Hey, listen, I got your prayer request for Susie. Man, I just wanted to reach out so I could pray for you personally. Man, so let's pray. All right, God, I thank you for John. I thank you for his wife, Susie, and the upcoming surgery that she's having next week. God, I pray that you'd be with every single one of the doctors and the nurses and all the medical staff involving in her surgery. I pray that it'd be the smoothest surgery that they've done in the history of this procedure. And I pray that she is back on her feet and back doing what she does quicker than any person has ever recovered from this surgery. In Jesus' name, amen. Right? Something like that, right? Like, I'll speak some life. All right. So I introduced myself. Hey, I'm Pastor Chris, right? Man, the reason I'm reaching out to you is because, man, I got your prayer request and I just wanted to reach out so I could pray for you personally, right? So that's my intro. Then my prayer, I pray for him, right? In Jesus' name, amen. And then I end it with a question, right? So say in Jesus' name, amen. John, I tell you what, we're actually having church this Sunday at 10 o'clock. Can you make it? Right? Like I just invite him out to church. Right. And a lot of, and sometimes I would say, hey, would you like to come out so that I can pray for you in person? Right. It's like, man, a lot of people love the audio prayer, but a lot of people, what they'd like even more is for you to pray for them in person. Right. Everybody wants a pastor praying for them. Right. They feel like pastors have direct lines to God. And for whatever reason, if a pastor prays for them, it means more than if they pray for themselves. Great. Right. Rather than try to explain why that's not the case, let's just lean into it and invite them out to church so they can have a pastor praying for them. We've done this. The first time I did this at my church, I think we had something like 513 prayer requests in the first month. Right. It's just something crazy. They just keep flowing in. But out of those 513 prayer requests, 86 people planned to visit to our church and wanted to come.
Wow.
Right. Like it was 86 people in 1 month. And here's what's crazy is, again, like what we've seen is that one planner visit typically averages about 3 people. Right. Because sometimes that's just a single person or a college kid who's coming out for the very first time and it's just them. But sometimes it's a family of 6. Right. So that's so for us, like those 86 planner visits, right. What was that? 86 times 3 and using my iPhone here. All right. So that's like 258 people. Right, 258 new visitors, approximately, that probably visited our church that month. Right. It was just, and it was, and it's so cool to see that happen. And again, these are people that we already built a relationship with. We sent an audio, right, and then invited them out to church, and they came. Well, imagine what would happen if you did that for the 2 months leading up to Easter, right? So back to your question. And let's say you prayed for 300 of them, in 1 month. And let's say, again, we typically see normally on average about 10%, right? So who end up planning a visit. So let's say 10% of them, 30 people say, yes, I want to come to church so you can pray for me in person. And let's say half of them don't show up. That's still 15 people, right? And those 15 people, those 15 planner visits, on average, are going to represent about 3 people a piece. So that's like 45 to 50 new visitors that you have each month. Yeah. And you can actually go out. Again, there's not to get into all the technical stuff, but there's a way in Facebook Messenger to actually send a message out to every single person that you've prayed for during those 2 months. And you can invite them out to church. Right. Wow. And so, just, like an easy message, like, and you can actually personalize it in Messenger too. Right. So you can say, hey, John, man, Pastor Chris here, man, I prayed for you here a couple of weeks ago and just wanted to follow up with you, see how everything's going, man. And I wanted to invite you out to our Easter services, which are going to be on Easter Sunday at 11 o'clock. Can you make it? Right. And then we're tapping back into that relationship and inviting him out to Easter, right? And if you prayed for 600 people in those 2 months, I guarantee some of them are going to say yes and go to church on Easter, right? And they're going to go. Right. So, I think that's personally how I would kind of invest into a ministry season, right, leading up to Easter. And then at Easter, right, like we have that Easter playbook that we kind of talked about before, which is kind of a series of things that I put together like an event stack, and which we should maybe go into that in another video. Break down the event stack that you can use, especially at Easter, any type of event. But I'd create an event stack. I'd run Facebook and Instagram ads. I'd have some personal invites that activate the congregation so they can invite their friends and invite servers and stuff like that at restaurants and all that kind of stuff. But I'd go all in a ministry, and then I'll just invite everyone that I've been praying for to come out to Easter, right? And then I'd pray for some more people, and I'd invite all those people out to Mother's Day, right? Like all the people we prayed for before Easter and all the people on Mother's Day, I'd invite them to Mother's Day, right? Then I pray for people all summer long during that ministry season with prayer ads. And then I go back and I'd I would invite everybody from Easter, Mother's Day, and the summer to come out to my
Uh-huh.
back to school bash, right? And then what happens is it just starts snowballing, and pretty soon you begin walking in the harvest of the seeds that you've been planting. And the
Mm-hmm.
key to everything is just going all in during those ministry seasons, and then
Yeah.
ministry seasons multiply momentum seasons.
And man, that's so good. And I couldn't help but think, like, even though you get like one, we're doing it for ministry's sake first,
Yeah.
and then a byproduct of that is the opportunity to invite. But obviously, we want to do that so they can come to a relationship with Jesus, so we can make heaven more crowded. I mean, that's why we're
Yep.
doing this. But what came to mind was the fact that you're praying for people, and maybe only 10% of them show up, like plan their visit immediately. But I'm thinking, okay, 6 months down the road, someone hits a moment in their life, and then they think back on, you know what? I need to get back in church. I remember that one pastor guy that prayed for me, and they make that connection. I mean, you see that all the time,
Yep.
to where even
Yep.
if they don't do it right there, and that's kind of the thing where people that do this long term, I can't help but think the what they're going to reap is
Yep.
just this massive harvest. Now, but you've got to keep working. You got to keep tilling the ground, planting the seeds. But then it just becomes overwhelming. It's like, oh my gosh, there's so much fruit. But you've got to get to that point of just, hey,
That's
I'm
it.
committed to sowing the seed. I'm gonna pray for people. I'm gonna care for people. I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna do the ministry first, and then comes the harvest. It doesn't go the other way around. We know this in giving. You don't get like, God's not gonna be like, okay, I'm gonna give you the money first,
Yep.
and then you'll start tithing, or then you'll start giving. I mean, we know that. We know it. No, it starts with generosity, me saying, okay, I'm going to step
Yep.
out in faith, and then God honors that. So
Yep.
just getting those things in the right order is what stuck out in my mind, of like, there's going to be people 6 months, 8 months, 12 months down the road that you prayed for that maybe are going to now just show up at your church because you prayed for them back then, even though they weren't in the 10% that immediately planned their visit. They will be down the road, and you're going to have this accumulative effect that is going to be happening. So
That's it.
man, so, as we wrap it up here, how can people get more info? We mentioned it a couple times in this, but how can they get more info, whether it's prayer ads or that everyday invites or all that stuff? What can they do to, hear all that stuff, to hear a plan for this fall? What can they do?
Yeah. So if you need some more, and if you want to learn a little bit more about this, excuse me, check out my YouTube channel. I've got close to 300 videos out there talking about a lot of the stuff: Facebook ads, Google, all that kind of stuff. Right. If you specifically need a back to school plan, and if you're watching this before August 10th, you can just go to churchmarketinguniversity.com/workshop, and you can sign up for that workshop. And we're going to be rolling out our back to school plan we put together for our church. So you can just kind of steal it and plug and play for your church if you'd like to. And we'll be breaking down this idea a little bit more. Momentum seasons, ministry seasons, how to use those. And then we've also got if you go to churchmarketinguniversity.com/free, churchmarketinguniversity.com/free, you can actually go there and you can get our top 10 church growth resources. So we kind of put that together like a kind of best of the best. And you can actually sign up there and then get access to all 10 of those and just kind of plug and play some of those for your church. So I guarantee you that you may not need all of them, but no matter where you're at, no matter what type of a unique situation that your church might find in, I guarantee there's at least a couple of those that'll apply, and that might be helpful to you. So check out the YouTube channel, sign up for the workshop, or you can go download our top 10 church growth resources. And I'm sure at least one of those hopefully can bring you some value and help you reach more people.
Love it. Love it. Okay. Make sure you like, subscribe as well. All the info is below in those links. Thanks everybody for hanging with us and hanging out. Be sure to share this with somebody if you feel like someone would benefit from the conversation that we had today. Thank you, Chris, again, for being with me. And thanks again, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you on the next video. Catch you later.
Thanks, bro.